I'm recording as of now.
Smiles, everyone, smiles. Fantasy Island, yeah, that was a throwback. And you tell me when you want to actually start the meeting, Angie.
All right, it's time to go.
Okay, well, I would like to welcome everybody to the League of Women Voters Forum. My name is Rebekah Miller, and I'm the current president of the League here in Salem County. We'd really like to say a big thank you to both Connie Beauvais and Kevin Van De Wege for participating in today's forum. Just wanted to give you just a tiny bit of background about the League of Women Voters. By the way, we are celebrating our centennial this year, which is fantastic. Unfortunately, we were not able to do some of the big celebrations that we had hoped to because we're all practicing social distancing and that kind of thing. First and foremost, I wanted just to talk about what nonpartisan means and what the League is. Nonpartisan means that we never take a side with political parties or a particular candidate. However, that doesn't mean that we don't take positions. The League we do certainly take positions, and this is done after a lot of study and discussion coming to consensus. I also am really proud of the Clallam County League. Just 2 months ago, we initiated a DEI committee. So that means diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so what that means is that we will be running through all of our positions with a DEI lens to be sure that that meets that criteria. It's a huge learning curve for all of us. I think I learn something about DEI every day, and I'm really proud to be in an organization that takes that so seriously. So I am going to blank off and mute off my screen so that you don't meet my dogs. I'm so sorry. But again, thank you so much. And I'd like to introduce Vicci Rudin, who is the moderator for today's forum. Thanks so much for being here.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Rebekah. Thank you to the candidates who are participating in this forum, and welcome to all who are viewing this forum or who may view it in later days. I'll be moderating this forum with candidates for Washington State Senator District 24. To comply with state guidelines for COVID-19 and to keep everyone safe, our league, as well as leagues statewide, are holding our election forums using virtual media. We're still working on perfecting our procedures, so please bear with us. Let's start with the logistics for this forum. If you're not already familiar with the Zoom webinar platform, let me just quickly point out a couple of things that are a little different than in a regular Zoom meeting. In this format, participants are in a view-only mode. If you do have a question about the operation of the forum, feel free to use the Q&A space to ask questions of our technology host. All questions for the forum have been collected in advance from our League email account. At any time, if you have questions or problems with Zoom, please call or text our tech host, Angie Skelf. You can see her phone number there on the screen. There are several volunteers working today to keep things running as smoothly as possible, and I'm grateful to all of them. We're recording this forum, as well as the one we will be presenting on the county charter amendments next week, and we'll post the links for them on the League's website within the next few days. We also post the links on our Facebook page, and liking us on Facebook is the best way to stay informed about our upcoming events. The two candidates presented in today's forum are Kevin Van De Wege, Democrat, and Connie Beauvais, Republican. Mr. Van De Wege is the incumbent. The Washington State Legislature is bicameral, consisting of Senate and House of Representatives. The Senate is the upper house and consists of 49 members, each representing a district with a population of nearly 160,000. The 24th district covers Clallam and Jefferson counties and most of Grays Harbor County. The senator's term is 4 years. The salary is $52,766 a year plus per diem. Today, we'll follow our usual format with candidates' opening statements, questions from the community, and then closing statements. Our candidates have been asked to answer the following questions in their opening statements. Why are you running for office? What are your qualifications for this office? And what are your goals for your first year in this term of office? We've instructed the candidates to keep their opening statements to 2 minutes or less. We'll have them take turns in the order in which their names appear on the ballot. For their closing statements at the end of this forum, we'll have them go in reverse ballot order. Closing statements will need to be 1 minute or less. Candidates, you'll see a tile on the presenter view for our timer. When you're speaking, this will show the amount of time you have remaining. When your time is up, I will ask you to complete your sentence. That's it, and we'll move on with the forum. All right, we'll begin the opening statements, starting with Kevin Van De Wege. Kevin, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Vicki, and thanks to the Clallam League of Women Voters for putting this forum together. It's valuable, and I appreciate the hard work. I also appreciate Connie, my opponent, agreeing to be on this debate with me. I think that's important, and the House members and the Republican Party have chosen not to do that. So I appreciate Connie being and using this platform. That's very good of you. I'm running to work to create and sustain jobs. I think jobs are the most important thing that I can work on the Olympic Peninsula, and have a long history of doing that, whether it's working to make sure our mills stay open, or helping small businesses, or taking government jobs and transferring them to the private industry. I think jobs are the #1 thing that I like to work on and is the most successful. When people have a job, there's less domestic violence, there's less drug and alcohol abuse, there's less child abuse, and more stable households. I think the biggest qualification I feel I have for this job is my job as a firefighter. In that capacity, I go and see people in their greatest time of need when they're not expecting me, and listen to their problems and solve their problems. And that has given me a real foundation and a background on how the average Olympic Peninsula person lives and what their needs are. And I take that down to Olympia and have worked to incorporate that and help solve people's problems and make their lives better, whether it's jobs or healthcare or access to healthcare, those type of things. In the coming year, if I'm reelected, certainly overcoming COVID will be the most important thing to do. It is imperative that we get past COVID and work to get our businesses back going again. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Kevin. Next, Connie Beauvais.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you to League volunteers for putting on this forum. They're so important. I am Connie Beauvais, Port Commissioner with the Port of Port Angeles. I was a Clallam County Planning Commissioner for 8 years, a Coast Guard Auxiliarist for 5 years, and sat as an elected on the last Charter Review Commission. I've worked for K-12 schools, the University of Alaska, and the federal government, and have owned several small successful businesses. I manage a large drinking water system and own an alpaca farm. My husband and I had commercial crab and halibut licenses in Alaska, and we have a small sawmill. In other words, I have a very deep and broad background and experience. My top priority is to get our state back to normal. I realize that may be a new normal, but it needs to be one in which we get all of our businesses reopened while keeping employees safe. We need to get our kids and grandkids properly educated while protecting students and staff from COVID. Our disenfranchised children and families in this rural district are even more disenfranchised now because many of them don't have computers. They don't need them because they don't even have internet or broadband. Balancing our state budget without adding more tax burden on citizens and businesses is a priority. There should have been a special session called to the legislature. Each day that goes by puts the state deeper in the hole with fewer days to balance the budget. We need to use good common sense at the state level to reduce spending, just as our businesses and families have done during COVID. And the legislature needs to review the governor's power in an emergency. Citizens have not been represented in the blanket decisions that have been made during COVID. The people's representatives should have been heard in a public session. I look forward to your questions this afternoon.
Thank you, Connie. Thank you both. And now we'll turn to our questions. We've asked when the questions were submitted that they be concise, hopefully under 30 seconds in length. I'll give each candidate 1 minute to answer each question. Even if a question appears to be directed at a particular candidate, both candidates are given the option to answer all questions, and both candidates will have the opportunity for a rebuttal of up to 30 seconds. Some of these questions you have both hinted at in your opening remarks, but these will give you an opportunity to expand on them. Our first question: what power does the state have to oversee the actions of police officers in local jurisdictions? Do you see a need for change? If so, what would that be? Kevin, we'll have you answer this one first. 1 minute.
So the state has the power to oversee through laws, and then the threshold in what constitute an officer acting irresponsibly. That is something that has been looked at and worked on for the last couple of years. In fact, there was a citizen initiative on it, and then we came up with an agreement in the legislature that really lowered the threshold that needs to be found for an officer to be in misconduct. I think there's some people that are interested in taking another look at that, and then also looking at some laws around what police officers need to follow. I think both of those are working fairly well right now. I want to concentrate my efforts on the hiring process for police officers so that we have future police officers be more in tune with kind of the societal needs of Washington State.
Connie, do you want me to repeat the question, or do you want to just go ahead and answer?
No, go ahead and repeat it, please.
What power does the state have to oversee the actions of police officers in local jurisdictions? Do you see a need for change? If so, what would that be?
Well, of course, if the state makes decisions on police powers, that's going to be blanketed across the whole state. And yes, all of our laws need to be reviewed. This one needs to be reviewed also. We must be careful, though, in those blanket decisions that we realize that the law that is set will affect everybody equally. So it's really important for the local agencies to make their own decisions on things too. But Kevin is right, of course, in saying that the state does have general oversight. I would like to see that law reviewed, but I also think that we need to make sure that we have proper funds in place for police training, and also to look at our state crime lab. They are so far behind. That's really put our courts in arrears.
Thank you. Now, as I said, each of you have another 30 seconds if you wish to rebut or add something to your statement. Kevin, do you have anything else to say? Or Connie? Nope. All right. Connie? Yeah.
I'm good.
Okay, we'll go on to the next question. This question comes from Marcia Rady of Squim. And she says, I have read that there will be a $9 billion shortfall in the Washington state budget due to the impacts of COVID-19. Is that accurate? How do you see this shortfall affecting the 24th legislative district? How will you address the shortfall? Connie, you can go first on this one.
Okay, well, that I'm not going to put a number on it because it changes day by day, and I'm not sitting in the financial office at the state, so I don't know exactly what that number is today or what it will be tomorrow. It has had a tremendous impact on all of on the state's budget, and there really should have been a special session called. Our representatives should have demanded it and pushed it, because each day that goes by puts us deeper in the hole, and with fewer days to be able to make things right. I do believe that the state needs to go in and all of the representatives sit down and go through the budget and cut out what we don't need this year. I do not agree with putting an additional tax burden on the citizens to balance the budget. The state needs to work on that shortfall, just like our businesses and our citizens have done or are doing.
Thank you. Kevin?
Thanks, Vicki. So the $9 billion number was correct at one point. But as the state has come out of this recession and the economy has started going again, that number has substantially reduced, essentially cut in half. We are the only state out of all 50 states that have a 4-year balanced budget in this state, and that helps us stay in check financially really well. And so that $9 billion was over 4 years. That has essentially been cut in half over 2 different biennium, two-year fiscal sets. So that has been helpful. We also have a rainy day fund that has been in effect for the last 10 years. And with some other cost savings and potentially more federal help, we already are very close to being at zero, which is a good spot to be in, much better than it was just a couple weeks ago.
Thank you. Again, the opportunity for 30-second rebuttals or other comments. Connie?
Sure. Looking at the federal level, I don't like to see our state government look to the feds for help. Whether or not that comes, we don't know yet. But I think that we need to try to make a go of it on our own without expecting help from the feds. I don't want the state to just figure that the feds are going to help us. And then if we don't get those funds, what are we going to do? Because we do have to have a balanced budget.
Kevin? Any more to
We will have
say?
a balanced budget. Yeah, we will have a balanced budget. The only government in our entire nation that's not allowed to have a balanced budget is the federal government. Every other one does. So we will have a balanced budget. I also favor going into special session, and that's not out of the picture yet. It still could happen next month. I think there's a decent chance that it will happen next month. But as of right now, our state is in a much, much better financial picture, and we just need to continue working towards getting back into the black as much as possible.
Our third question, this one comes from Liam Antrim in Squim. There are several proposed projects in or adjacent to Washington State for expanded transport and export terminal development for oil, natural gas, and coal. Public comment, intergovernmental consultations, and environmental review and compliance has not been quick in most cases. Do you feel our state and/or federal regulations related to these types of projects are appropriate? Or can you cite areas where you feel regulations are either too lax or too restrictive? Connie, will you take this one first?
Sure. A lot of those things, well, there's so many agencies that are involved. The state would be only one agency. There's ORCA, there's NOAA, there's Department of Army Corps, the federal government, the tribes. There are a lot of organizations involved. We have, as we've moved through the years and trying to get things permitted, it takes longer and longer and longer, and now it's even worse during COVID. So I think one of the things that would be really helpful to shorten the permit process is to have a number of things run consecutively, right at the same time, so that we don't have near as long a process to follow. This is going to be something that the public really needs to be involved in and really needs to speak out about. There needs to be public discussion very loudly. But again, the state would be just one of those agencies involved. But if things were to run concurrently, it would really help speed up the process.
Kevin, do you
Thank
want me to
you.
repeat the question or not?
No, I think I got the gist of it. Thank you. I think there are enough regulations and safeguards in place. I understand that a lot of people have hesitation when hazardous materials potentially are going to come into Washington State and be shipped out over our waters. There are a lot of concerns about that. But I think there is a good and smart public input in place where the public has their chance to voice their opinion. I think some detrimental projects have been taking off the potential because of public input and the various regulations that are in place. But I would remind folks that I think we always need to be open to everything. Just coal, for instance, if we stop a coal export project, it doesn't mean whoever, say China is taking that coal, that China's not going to use that coal. It just means it's going to be exported for somewhere else. So I think we always have to be open if we are the safest place to export to potentially using Washington for those purposes.
Connie, you have 30 seconds if you wish to add more.
Sure, there's a couple of things in play here, and one is moving things across land or sea to get to a location, and then there's also using that material for energy or other purposes, right in our locale. We need to be as careful as we can to protect our environment while we're transporting and using these materials. And we've got some really good organizations and overseers who help us make sure that we do that correctly.
Kevin, another 30 seconds, or are you?
Yeah, no, I mean, the thing I would add is not necessarily about hazardous materials, but about logs. The Port of Port Angeles ships out a lot of logs that go overseas and create jobs overseas. And I would like certainly a lot more of those logs to be used here and be creating jobs here. So it's a little different than hazardous materials, but if I was a port commissioner, I know Connie is, I would be concentrating on getting those logs put into production here in Washington State, creating jobs.
Next question, totally different subject. This one comes from Ellen Fetchett of Port Angeles. There has been inadequate availability of childcare, especially needed in order for parents to work in Clallam County and Washington State for several years. A recent article published in Politico magazine cited a labor economist who says the economic toll of the collapse of the childcare system will be felt for 20 to 30 years. What work is being done, or what ideas do you have to begin to solve this problem in our state? Kevin, would you take this one first?
Yeah, sure. So childcare is a big issue. My wife and I were both working parents when our children were younger, and I know that the problems that exist around that, and they are important and they need to be solved. Currently, just in Clallam County, the state, we are working on putting money into Boys and Girls Club and the William Shore Pool, both of which will have after school and childcare programs, and that's important. And we did build a facility out at the Quileute Tribe, helping with state dollars. There are some funding potentials around expansion of childcare, but I think in order for me to see that happen, I would want to see some less regulation around childcare. I think part of the reason we're seeing problems with the access to childcare is we have overregulated it in a number of areas, and we need to pull back on that somewhat.
Vicki, your mic is very quiet suddenly.
There? Okay. Connie, it's your turn.
Hi, Vicki, thank you. We need to look at regulations. You know, the legislature, well, let me just say government is really good at making more and more laws, and they just keep piling on top of one another, and they tend to be more restrictive as laws move around instead of relaxing. So we need to look at that whole big picture again. There's one, I've been thinking about this, and one of the ways that we can help alleviate childcare, there's a couple of things. We can get more people to work so that they can afford childcare. But the problem's even bigger than that because there isn't enough childcare. I would really like to see grandparents in our area not just be tutors for our kids, but to provide childcare so that parents can work and kids are under, you know, the watchful eye of grandparents and other young people who, you know, can really help them. I know that the community college, that would be a good place to get people ready to do child care. So even looking at our Peninsula College might be a way to help alleviate that situation in our community, as well as what is happening at Williams Shore Pool, etc. Okay.
Thank you.
I don't see the seconds up there, so I have no idea if I have 50 seconds or 2.
Not seeing it? Oh. 30-second rebuttal from either of you. Kevin, do you have more on childcare?
I think so saying more people have to have jobs in order to create more childcare is not the solution, unfortunately. I know a lot of parents probably out there pulling their hair out right now. There are literally lots of people that can't go to work because they can't find childcare. We need to fix childcare before we go off and say, hey, you need to get a job and all your problems will be solved. Childcare is at the root of the problem there for a lot of young families that are struggling.
30 seconds. 30
Sure.
seconds.
Sure, I agree with that, but there are parents out there too who can't afford childcare because they don't have jobs. And to complicate the issue now, we have kids at home doing school at home. So again, those parents can't work. But there are, like I said, things that we can do to help alleviate that situation. Getting people educated and hopefully forming an organization within the communities and even the churches to provide childcare.
The next question. Please identify what you see as the greatest environmental challenges facing the Olympic Peninsula and how you as state senator would address those challenges. Connie, you'll take this one first.
Well, that is a really big topic and would take way more than a minute. I know that out here on the peninsula, we have a negative carbon footprint if you look at the peninsula, and vice versa on in the I-5 corridor, they don't so much because they use a lot more energy than we do. But one of our environmental challenges out here is we don't need to have regulations put on us for what we are already doing. We need to get our forests in much better health and in better shape. That would help jobs and would help our environment. We need more fish in the water. That's another big issue. And I don't know how close to 60 seconds I have, so I'll just stop there.
Are you not seeing the timer
Correct.
screen?
I am not seeing the timer screen.
I'm
I
seeing
see
it fine.
you.
You should be seeing six screens. The tech host, mine, Kevin, you, timer, and our
Rebekah.
league president.
Okay, so I don't know how to see all of them. I see you and I see me.
Up in the right corner, you'll see something that says speaker view or gallery view, and you want to click on gallery view, and then you should be able to see everyone.
Let's see. You probably see my finger going back and forth now.
All right.
You want me to go ahead and answer while she's working on that?
Yep.
Okay. All right.
So the biggest environmental need, I think, facing the Olympic Peninsula is the threat of land conversion. We all live here for various reasons, but all of us love the nature, the trees, the farmlands, the fish. And I think the biggest threat to all of that is land conversion. And by land conversion, I mean currently working for us that are going to be converted to homes, or working farmland that is going to be converted to homes. If that continues at the pace that it's going, we're going to have more people here and less nature to enjoy. And I think that, frankly, is the biggest environmental impact to the Olympic Peninsula. The ways to combat that is to make sure our forest and timber industry stay vibrant and profitable, as with our farms. And the farms are we can do locally. We can do the CSA's program and support your local farmers market and the local farms. That all keeps that land in production and homes off it.
Thank you. That previous question, I'm sorry, I haven't allowed the time for rebuttal. Okay, Connie, you will go first on that. You have 30 seconds. And is the timer working okay for you now?
No, I still don't see it. I have an Android phone and I'm not sure which screen to do. So I'll just try to tick it off in my head. That's okay.
Excuse me, Vicki. Actually, she didn't get a chance to answer it yet, so it should be her 60 seconds.
Sure, that's right. Go ahead.
Well, actually, I did answer it, but we have a lot of challenges before us, and that is, you know, we need to figure out what we're going to do with fish farming, what we're going to do with bivalve farming, you know, how we're going to keep our waters clean, how the heck we're going to pay for all of the fish culvert work that needs to be done. We've got a lot of things before us. I know that conversion is an issue, and that's something under Growth Management Act that we certainly need to review. We do need to make sure that as we set land aside, that leaves the tax burden on fewer and fewer people. So it's you know, okay, thank you. That works too.
We'll do that. Is that okay? All right. When we get to stop, I will put my hand up. All
That
right.
works for me.
Okay. All right. Now we're into rebuttals. Kevin, excuse me, Bonnie, you will reverse it for this since you've just done yours. Kevin, you have 30 more seconds if you wish.
Yeah, sure. I don't have much to add. I would agree. I mean, the Olympic Peninsula has a great many environmental needs, whether it's looking at things globally like carbon, or things that are more region-based or state-based, like culverts. But I think here on the Olympic Peninsula, our biggest threat will continue to remain land conversion, and hopefully those lands will remain valuable and profitable, and people will choose to live in a more urban environment so that we can all enjoy nature.
Connie, you do have another 30 seconds if you wish.
Okay, thanks, Vicki. One of the huge environmental problems that I see is the health of our forests. As you drive through the national park and through our federal forests and even our public lands, you can see as many as 1 out of 10 trees, I see the timer now, dead because of you know, the changing climate and disease and infestation. So, you know, working to make our forests healthy so that they don't burn to the ground like is happening in other states is vitally important.
Right. That previous, am I heard now or not?
Yeah.
I hear you.
Okay. That previous question came from Maren Halverson of Squim, and she had a follow-up. So I'll give you another minute, but not rebuttal time, another minute each for this part of it. She said, comments on the status of the Dungeness off-channel reservoir would also be welcome. Kevin, do you have something to say about that?
Yeah, it's something that is working its way through. It is something that I do support. It is very spending and costly lake, but I think it will have a significant impact. It is a project that I think will move ahead, and it might just take a few years for it to get to a fruition. The one thing as this project moves ahead that I've been wanting to maintain is public access to the reservoir. I do not want to build a reservoir and put a cyclone fence around it. I want to have a reservoir that has trails, public access, a place that you could go down and enjoy, has room for wildlife. That is kind of become my passion around this reservoir, because it is going to move forward, and it's going to be used for the irrigation water. The water out of the reservoir will go directly into the ditches for irrigation, not back into the river.
Connie?
I have been touting projects like this for a long time. Okay, it sounds like there's some feedback now, but I have been really pushing projects like this for a very long time. We need to start looking at these kinds of projects for our future drinking water if we are not able to drill 1,000 feet down on the Olympic Peninsula to find a large water source. It's going to be really important if we're going to have more rain in the winter time and more snow, that we are able to capture that water at a high flow time so that we can put it back into our rivers and creeks for not just fish, but also for drinking water. That will be huge in the future.
Thank you. Our next question: what have you done or would you do to foster economic development in rural communities, such as those in our 24th legislative district? Kevin, will you take that one first?
Certainly. As I said, economic development jobs are very important to me, because there's just more stable households when families are employed. And I think the first thing about creating jobs is retaining the jobs that you have. And that starts with our manufacturing jobs. Biggest ones are the mills, keeping our mills profitable, helping them with the permitting process, getting timber harvested in a sustainable manner, the best that we can, are all things that we've worked on. And I say we, meaning the 24th district team, myself, Mike, and Steve, to keep those mills open. We've had, there's always challenges, but we've had a lot of successes there. And then going and supporting small businesses. So a number of times I've had a number of bills where small businesses have come and said, hey, we need this legislative solution, and we've been able to make it happen. We've been able to get it passed, whether it's the rental place in Port Townsend or childcare in Port Angeles. We've always been able to make that happen, and that's helped those businesses succeed.
Thank you. Connie?
Well, as a port commissioner, I've had a unique opportunity to help with that very thing, because the goal of the Port Commission, or the port itself, is to bring resources together, both financially and with people, to create infrastructure so that businesses can grow. And that's what the port does, and that's exactly what government should do, and our state government too, is to provide funds for infrastructure, to provide those opportunities for businesses to come in and create jobs. The government cannot, the only jobs government can create are government jobs. So we need to encourage the local businesses that we have and help them to grow. And as a port commissioner, we're developing the Marine Trades Industrial Park, and we are looking to get our first occupant in there that is a local business, and we are helping them to grow.
Kevin? You have another 30 seconds if you wish.
Sure. Yeah.
Kevin, your video has paused on us. I'm sure it's trying to reset. We may need to come back to this question. I think Kevin is trying to rejoin. His connection was lost. Maybe this would be a good time to talk about broadband. But Vicki, go ahead and proceed.
No, I think we should wait until he rejoins.
All right, I'll keep my eyes peeled for it. We had a plan for what we would do if our volunteers went down, but not if one of our candidates did, unfortunately.
Well, of course, I'm going to jump in and take this opportunity that if any of our viewers or their friends or family are interested in joining the league, we would love to have them. And all you need to do is go to our website at lwvcla.org. We would love to hear lots of different voices. It's a group of very smart, well-informed people. I've learned so much being a part of the organization, and we just encourage any and all of you to please join.
And we got Kevin back. Yay!
Bye.
Sorry about that.
Kevin, you were in the middle of your 30-second further comments on economic development.
And you want me to continue?
Go ahead and continue. You've got about 15 seconds left.
Okay, so sorry about that. The only thing I was going to mention was log exports are concerning. John Wayne Marina, which is a big job creator, I think would have been sold off if it wasn't for a public outcry. So I think it should be the focus of every legislator to work on and create jobs. Thank you.
Glad you're back. Connie, 30 seconds.
Okay, well, I'm going to talk about timber a little bit because, you know, we have had most of our mills closed down. There are people who are working to try to get another mill going, and our opportunity zones work is really helping with that. But, you know, as long as we have competition in that market, which is a really good thing, it will be hard for a small business to start out. It's going to take a pretty sizable amount of funding to get that started again.
Thank you. Our next question for both of you, and this comes from Bonnie Bless-Boenish of Squim. What will you do to combat racial and economic inequality? Connie, will you take that one first?
Well, we need to make sure that we maintain the law at the state level, that there will not be any discrimination in terms of hiring people. That is super important. I know there were some who were trying to do away with that law just a couple of years ago. That needs to be maintained. But within all of us individually, we need to recognize and love one another for what each person is, not what the outside of their body looks like, because there's not one of us that is perfect. I happen to be short, so I am vertically challenged, but I make my own way. So we need to look at each other and recognize what's in our hearts and what's in our minds. That being said, we need to make sure that that our justice system, from the police and the courts, does not discriminate at all in any of the work that they do.
Thank you. Kevin, 1 minute.
You bet. Thank you. I think that is that movement is going to have a significant impact on this coming session and sessions into the future. I think really every piece of legislation we pass will have will go under some degree of equity lens, and I think a lot of existing laws will continue to be reviewed. How we sentence people to prison in the state, what people make up, what is our prison population made up of, and what are their successes after exiting prison. Certainly police accountability will continue to be a topic, and what our police in the future look like. So I think it really will be very global and encompassing as we move forward in the next few sessions.
30 seconds.
And
You
it
wish
is, sure, and it is really past time to do that. Too many years have gone by without us reviewing those laws that have to do with racial discrimination. So as Kevin said, I know that we all will be looking at that in all of the laws that we review and that we pass in the future.
30 seconds.
I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Our next question, this comes from Marcia Rady in Squim. She says, I've been involved in a study of the probability of a public bank in Washington State. Would you support a public bank? And if so, why? And if not, why? Kevin, would you take that first?
Sure. Currently in this nation, only one state has a state public bank. That's North Dakota. It is something that I would very much and passionately support us to mimic here in Washington State. It can have a lot of successes with a public bank. Mainly, it can save taxpayers and local governments money by doing lower interest loans and having kind of revolving, as they get money back, then they have more money to loan out. So saving taxpayers and local governments money is my #1 reason I support it. But it has far-reaching things. We can be a little more aggressive with taking business challenges on. And some of those are going to fail, but some of them are going to be successes. And that's how you create jobs, is by taking some risks. The big banks are fundamentally and absolutely opposed to this state making a public bank, but I hope that we get there in the future.
Connie, your comments about a public bank?
I must say that I am not familiar with a public bank. However, I will say that I would like to see our state have funds that are set aside that can be used for no or very, very low interest loans by both cities and nonprofit organizations, and even looking possibly to the private sector, so that those funds could be repaid over a period of time. The state would be able to see a return on investment that way, a number of ways. Not only would their dollars be returned, but in so doing, there would be jobs and revenue generated that would go to the state in forms of payroll taxes, as well as business and occupation taxes.
Thank you. Do either of you have further things you'd like to say about the public bank? Kevin? Connie?
I'm good.
Kevin? All right.
Sorry, I was muted. I'm good. Sorry. Thank you.
Our next question I'm not muted, am I?
Nope, we can hear you.
Okay, all right. I didn't see the colored line around my box on the screen, so I wanted to be sure. That's a great fear, losing your ability to be heard. This is one that I can't attribute to a single person because it's an issue that several raised. Many people are at risk of losing their health insurance if they become unemployed. What, if anything, should be done about this? Connie, you'll take this first.
Sure, I'll take that. I work for a nonprofit water system. We just have a handful of employees and everybody has different health needs. So we have gone to the state health care website for each of our employees who don't have insurance. And that has been a really good avenue for employees to get exactly what they need for themselves if they're just single or if they have a family. Those plans can continue whether or not they are employed or not. And so I think that the state has done a great thing in making that plan, that whole concept available to people.
Kevin?
Thank you for the question. I find it fascinating that Connie mentions that. That is the Affordable Care Act that the leader of her party, President Trump, is passionate about disassembling. We face the real possibility of each thing she just mentioned being out of place in 6 months from now. There is, by the end of the year, should the Supreme Court nominations go through, everybody with pre-existing conditions will not be accessible to medical insurance as they are under Affordable Care Act. And all of the subsidized rates would go away. And that's the website she mentioned. The only way to truly, to answer the question, the only way to truly get away from employer-connected health insurance is some sort of public or single payer option. And that's something I'm always open to because there's a great need for it.
Connie, 30-second rebuttal.
Well, whether or not that comes to fruition, our state needs to look at either keeping the plan that we have as a state or setting up something very similar. There doesn't have to be something at the federal level for that. We can certainly do that at our state level.
Any further comments?
You may go ahead. Thank you. And I'm a little passionate about this. As a firefighter paramedic, I deal and see people struggling all the time because they don't have access to healthcare. That is a completely out of touch answer. The only way a healthcare system will work in this country is nationwide. It could literally bankrupt our state. Although we are, if President Trump is successful, we will work to maintain what we have in this state, but it can only work on a national level. It is very costly to do on a state level.
This last question is really one I planned, although what you have both been talking about seems to lead right to it. What will you do to reduce polarization between political parties? Kevin, will you take that first?
You bet. I have a long history of being a moderate and working across party lines. My caucus currently looks to me to be one that solves problems when we have to negotiate. And there was a Foster decision that was groundbreaking in this state that I was the lead negotiator on. A potential carbon bill last year. I was helped try to negotiate a solution that worked for rural and urban areas and across environmental lines. So my biggest thing is working with Republicans in the legislature because so many have great ideas and just getting to solutions and being willing to compromise. The one thing that I think is missing from our political system right now is people just being willing to compromise and tell their constituents the truth that it is in their best interest to come up with a solution and not bicker.
Connie, what would you do
Well,
to reduce polarization?
okay, first of all, this is the very first position that I have run in on a party ticket. I have always been nonpartisan, so this is the first time I have run on with a party. I will work very, very hard to be that go-between between the Republicans and the Democrats so that we can get some good common sense decisions done. I will say that my opponent voting yes on 45 cents a gallon increase on gasoline certainly would not help this rural district. So I know that there was not agreement on, you know, both sides of the table for that. I do not find that to be a very conciliatory action on his part.
Kevin, you have 30 seconds if you wish to add anything.
Sure. Our transportation needs are great, and I'm always open to finding a solution. I have never voted for a gas tax that has been signed into law. There was one point where there was a procedural vote where I did vote for a gas tax, but I would encourage Connie to explain what she means by that. I've never voted for a gas tax that's been enacted in the law.
30 seconds.
Sure, thank heaven it was not enacted into law, otherwise it would be costing our trucking industry a tremendous amount. But you did vote ahead of that in the Senate to increase taxes on gasoline by 45 cents. So yes, we have a lot of transportation issues in our state, but that burden on our rural district where we have to drive twice as far for half the income is not an answer.
All right, that concludes the question section of our forum. And to wrap up now, we'll move on to our candidates' closing statements. These are 1 minute each. We'll go in reverse order, which means we'll begin with Connie Beauvais.
All right, thank you. Your representatives in Olympia need to spend as much time as possible in the trenches in their district so they will have knowledge that they need to make the best decisions in Olympia. The late Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg had many memorable quotes. This is one that particularly resonates with me. Quote, "I would like to be remembered as someone who used whatever talent she had to do her work to the very best of her ability," end quote. That is what I will do for you if elected. I will use all my talents to the best of my ability to make sure state government works at its highest and best potential without detrimentally affecting the citizens it serves. Help me get to Olympia by voting for Connie Beauvais, State Senate. Thank you.
Thank you, Connie. Kevin, your 1 minute closing.
Thank you, Vicki. I'm Kevin Van De Wege, and I live in Sequim. I'm a firefighter paramedic here. My wife, Jennifer, is an elementary school teacher in Port Angeles. We've raised both our children in Clallam County. I've served in the legislature for 14 years and have found my way onto the Senate Ways and Means Committee, a very powerful committee. I chair the Agriculture, Water, and Natural Resource Committee and am also on the Healthcare Committee. So my work in Olympia has been positive, it's been fruitful, and I ask you to elect me to another term in the Senate so I can keep working for you. I really want to thank the League of Women Voters for putting on this forum, and particularly Connie for agreeing to participate. As I mentioned at the beginning, other candidates have chosen not to participate, and I think that shows significantly what they're about. And again, appreciate you putting on this forum. Thank you.
I have some closing comments now, which are aimed not at these two candidates, but at our viewing public on behalf of the League. Thank you, candidates, for running for public office and for participating today. Many thanks to our volunteers who made this whole thing work and who made my job easy, and especially to all of you for being part of this forum. We deeply appreciate your patience with this new platform, and believe me, we're looking forward to when we can do these events in person again. Before we sign off, please note the League will present another virtual forum on Tuesday evening, October 13th at 7 p.m., and this will be on the proposed amendments to the Clallam County Charter. You will find the Zoom link to this on the League's website. Ballots will be mailed on October 14th. Remember that in Washington, you can now register to vote up to and on Election Day, November 3rd. The easiest way to register or to verify that your registration is up to date and accurate is by going to votewa.gov. But you need to do that by October 26th. Between then and Election Day, you can still register or change your address, but you'll need to do so in person at the courthouse. Because of COVID-19 safety limitations, be sure to call ahead to confirm their hours. Your ballot must be postmarked or placed in a ballot drop box by 8 p.m. on Election Day, November 3rd, to be counted. If you are using the mail, the USPS recommends voters return their ballot a week before Election Day. Voters returning their ballots less than a week before Election Day are encouraged to use an official ballot drop box, of which there are 9 throughout the county. These boxes will be opened by elections staff on October 14th and available 24/7 until 8 p.m. on Election Day. And the locations of these boxes can be viewed also at www.votewa.gov. Thank you again for being part of this online forum. Enjoy the rest of your day and celebrate the fact that both the Seahawks and the Storm won their games today. Washington State is a great place. Thank you.